Frog, where are you? Told by me. Once upon a time, there was a little boy, a dog, and his frog. And boy, did they have the most perfect life together. The boy was mesmerized with the frog. And the dog, well, he was just curious. The frog, on the other hand, had a different plan than the boy and the frog had. One night, they sat in their room together. And then finally, the boy and his dog went to bed. And the dog, of course, was sleeping with the boy in his bed. The frog had other plans, like I said, and he decided it was time to make a life of his own. He didn't want to be in that jar any longer. So the frog snuck out, unbeknownst to the boy and the dog, because he did it during the night while they were asleep. The boy woke up the next morning with his dog and were surprised that the frog was gone. That little boy looked everywhere in that room. He turned that room upside down, looked from corner to corner, trying to find that frog. Couldn't find him anywhere. Looked in his shoes, looked in his pajamas, looked in his clothes, looked behind the bed. He looked everywhere. The dog wanted to help, but you know, dogs, they are controlled by their sense of smell, shall we say. And the dog was sniffing everywhere and, of course, sniffed down into the jar and got his head stuck in the jar. The boy decided to go over to the window, raise up the window, and yell for the frog. Maybe the frog would hear him and come back. "Frog, get back here! I want to play with you!" The dog thought he would help, too, but he still had that jar stuck on his head and leaped up on the windowsill to try to yell for the frog as well. And then he slipped and fell out the window. The boy was afraid that he had gotten hurt. Luckily, the dog was fine, but it busted that jar into a million pieces. And the boy picked up his dog just to make sure he wasn't hurt. He was a little angry with the dog. The dog just licked and licked and licked him. How could you get mad when a dog licks your face, right? So they went off gallivanting in and around their neighborhood to try to find the frog. And at the edge of the neighborhood is this little patch of woods. And they yelled and yelled for the frog. "Where are you, frog? Please come home." At the edge of the woods, at the edge of this little patch of woods, there was a hornet's nest hanging from a tree. And the dog became so curious about what was in that nest. And he started barking at the hornets. And the hornets were buzzing all around. The boy happened to see a hole in the ground and thought maybe the frog was in there. So he yelled down the hole, and then all of a sudden, Mr. Groundhog pops out, bites him in the nose, because he woke him up from a nap. The dog is howling at the hornet's nest. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. So, while the dog is howling at the hornet's nest, he is barking up the tree. The hornet's nest falls down, and at the same time, the boy runs over, finds this huge, massive tree with a hole in the side of it. The boy yells down in the hole to think maybe the frog might be down in there. Out pops Mr. Owl. He is not happy at all because he was also taking a nap. And the hornets weren't happy either because the dog had he wouldn't leave him alone. So the hornets came after the dog. The dog went running through the woods, and I fell back out of the tree. I didn't get hurt, though, said the little boy. So they went on looking for the frog and found this big rock. So the boy thought, I'll get up on this rock. Maybe that'll give me an edge, and I'll yell for the frog at the top of this rock. So I got up on the top of this rock, held on to what I thought was part of a tree to keep my balance, and yell for the frog. What I thought was a branch of a tree was, however, antlers of a deer. Oh, my word. I fell on top of the deer, and the deer, of course, was scared half to death, didn't know what to do with me, and took off running, and the dog, my dog, came running after. The deer stopped at the edge of a cliff abruptly, and the little boy fell off of the top of the deer and down into a creek. And the dog came tumbling after the little boy. No worries, though. Neither one of them got hurt, because the creek was deep enough that they didn't get hurt. So the little boy sat in the creek, and the little dog plopped up on top of his head, and they thought they heard something. So the little boy told the dog to be very, very quiet, that he thought he heard something. They found this log and climbed up over on top of the log so they could see what was on the other side. On the other side was Mr. and Mrs. Frog. They looked so cute together. And then a little further into their little nest were little baby frogs. Precious. The little boy and the dog were happy to see that the frog that they had earlier was safe and sound. The little boy had plans to play with the frog all day that day, so he asked if he could take one of the frogs home and play. He promised to bring it back, though. Mr. and Mrs. Frog said that would be fine, that if he took one of the kids to play with him during that day. The end.